On the 11th of September 2012, at 6:30 p.m, a fire occurred at the textile factory of Ali Enterprises in Karachi, Pakistan. The fire caused the death of 259 workers who were trapped inside the burning building behind locked emergency exits and barred windows. The fire raged until 2 p.m. on September the 12th. On August the 20th, 2012, just 3 weeks before the fire, the factory was awarded the SA 8000 certificate. The certificate's associated standard is designed by Social Accountability International and is intended to ensure socially responsible workplaces. The actual assessment for the certification was carried out by RENA Services SPA, who went on to subcontract the job of auditing the factory to the company RI&CA. Local inspectors audited the factory in a series of visits, which started on the 22nd of June and on the 2nd of July. RENA subsequently issued the certification in August. After the fire occurred, a set of photographs allegedly taken during the audits was published by the certification company. One of the factory workers stated that none of the pictures included in the set referred to the main building. The factory building, which is located in Karachi, lies on the border of the Sindh Industrial Trading Estate, next to the Mazroor, Pakistan Air Force Base. Drawing from satellite imagery, we are able to situate the building within its urban context and determine its key dimensions. Using aligned videos and stills, we have been able to visualize key architectural elements in the context of the fire. Videos of people escaping from the building align with written testimonies to tell the story of the progression of the fire and the path of those inside. Images of the building's facade give indications of the proportionality of the structure so that it can be scrutinized against relevant building codes. Witness sketches provide layouts for floor plans and show us the configuration of the building and the way that it was used from day to day. By aligning key images within the three-dimensional model, we have also been able to establish the internal layout of the building. The factory floor was a densely filled array of workstations. The circulation space was cluttered with textile products and electrical wiring which ran into overhead service runs. The study seeks to establish and highlight where the building failed to comply with the safety regulations as defined by Pakistani law and the SA 8000 guidelines. Pakistani law states that every factory should have clear and audible means of giving warning in the case of fire. The factory claims to have had one fire alarm at the main gate of the building. Witnesses have testified that the alarm did not function. This alarm had also failed during another fire which took place 7 to 8 months previously. Despite the incident, the alarm had not been repaired. Pakistani law states that there should be one extinguisher for a space of up to 557 square meters or 6,000 square feet, and subsequent extinguishers for each additional 557 square meters or 6,000 square feet of space. Block A has a footprint of 1,600 square meters and therefore should have had 3 fire extinguishers on the ground floor. Emergency evacuation plans on the building show provision for only one extinguisher inside the building, as shown in the image. This means that even if the fire extinguishers had been functional, the notional provision was below legal requirements. Furthermore, witnesses stated that fire extinguishers in the block were empty and that workers in the factory did not know how to operate them. This lack of training means that the operation of the building was also in violation of the SA 8000 guidelines, which state that personnel must be trained on the basic use of fire extinguishers. According to Karachi building regulations, areas of different use within a building should be compartmentalized. The mezzanine floor was not compartmentalized and had a clear opening onto the warehouse floor where the fire started. Compartmentalization could have occurred along the edge of the floor as shown. According to Karachi building regulations, in buildings like the garment factory, the distance from any point to the nearest staircase should not exceed 30 meters. In the garment factory, these routes exceeded regulations. Some were as long as 63 meters on the second floor. In 2012, shortly after the fire, the Pakistani Federal Investigation Agency produced a report into the unfolding of events with accompanying images and analysis of the factory. The photographic evidence provided useful clues about the spatial configuration of the building. This document was followed later by the Joint Investigation Team report in 2016. The document provided a few corroborative notes about the architecture, but focused mainly on the idea of arson as the cause of fire, rather than analysis of the building itself. One of the main causes of the fire was the storage of combustible materials on the ground floor of the building. Despite the fact that images from the FIA report have deteriorated through multiple reproductions, we were able to use them to create projections onto our model and situate instances of combustible material on the ground floor. The projected photo shows bales of clothing wrapped in polyethylene plastic. These bales are known to be the predominant fuel for the fire. According to the SA 8000 guidelines, flammable and hazardous material should have been stored safely. Photos like this one show that bales of flammable clothing were kept all over the factory floor. Pakistani law states that a free passageway giving access to each means of escape in case of fire shall be maintained. Witnesses stated that clothing stored on the main floor frequently blocked escape routes, in violation of this law. The projected photo from the FIA report shows what was left of the mezzanine after the fire. The timber structure, which is also mentioned in the JIT report, was completely destroyed. Visible amongst the wreckage are twisted steel beams which supported the timber floor of the mezzanine. Karachi building regulations state that all steel structural members should be protected with non-combustible materials to provide required fire resistance. The Karachi building regulations also state that concrete fire protection should be provided on steel columns and be reinforced with wire mesh. Approved construction drawings of the building's mezzanine floor show that it should have been constructed with roller compacted concrete, but timber was used instead. According to Pakistani building regulations, every building shall be provided with at least 2 sets of stairs or steps, one of which should be external. An external staircase could have been positioned as shown, but there was no external staircase on the building. The building had only one main stair connecting all floors inside. There was one stair connecting the basement to the ground floor, and a small stair connecting the ground floor to the mezzanine. According to the FIA report, and based on photographic evidence, the factory's cargo lift, which connected all floors of the building, contained cavities on the ground level, which provided entry points for the fire and smoke to spread to the upper floors of the building. According to Karachi building regulations, the shaft should have had no openings in it and should have also been ventilated to the exterior of the building to prevent smoke travel to other floors. According to Pakistani law, doors affording exit from any room shall not be locked. The factory had 5 doors, which were escape routes to Block B. From witness sketches, the FIA report, and from the JIT report, we know that at the time of the fire, all of these doors were unopenable. 3 of the doors were locked or had no level access, and the remaining 2 doors were blocked by fire and had lodged into their frames due to heat expansion. The factory also had multiple doors which opened to the outside without any level access, rendering them useless to evacuees. One of these doors, on the southeast facade, is shown. Additionally, many of the building's windows had iron bars on them, preventing escape from the building when other means were cut off. The following sequence shows the progression of the fire throughout the building. The projected photo shows a can of kerosene and an iron rod which was wrapped in cloth and used to ignite drying equipment. These objects were left near to the opening of the main warehouse, which contained a large volume of the flammable material in the form of bales of clothing. The Social Accountability International guidelines state that flammable and hazardous materials in factories must be properly stocked and kept away from ignition sources. The proximity of these objects suggests that their storage was poorly managed and that the safety of the factory was severely compromised as a result. The fire was discovered at some time after 6:30 p.m. in the ground floor warehouse by the accountant, who saw a bale of clothing in flames. The fire then spread on the ground floor, consuming cotton material, and reached the mezzanine timber floor, which burnt rapidly. This helped the fire to spread to the elevator shaft. The chimney effect caused by the unprotected shaft allowed the fire to climb directly to the second floor of the building, and subsequently to the first floor also. By 7:03 p.m., when the firemen had arrived, the fire had spread to all floors and smoke had filled the unventilated basement. Using computational fluid dynamics, we were able to create a simulation showing the spread of smoke throughout the building. The simulation shows how smoke could have spread in existing conditions. The smoke source is a continuously growing fire, which simulates the large amounts of combustible textiles and the timber mezzanine floor. Smoke is seen filling the ground floor space and quickly moving upwards through the main stairway and elevator shaft. Smoke has filled all floors of the building after around 9 minutes. The second simulation shows how the fire could have spread if the elevator shaft had been fire safe and if doors to the main staircase had been closed as per the regulations. The simulation assumes an aggregate gap of up to 0.5 square meters across all floors to simulate small physical gaps in doorways. With only minimal gaps for smoke to permeate through, smoke travels more slowly through the structure, and the escape routes through the main stair and elevator shaft remain clear. These are the conditions that would have existed had the building complied with the law. In contrast, the actual conditions of the fire can be seen on the right. The permeation of smoke throughout the building not only reduced visibility and severely affected wayfinding, but was also the cause of death of many of the factory workers. There were supposed to be 268 workers with a variation of 40 inside the factory at any time. According to witness testimonies, there were actually around 885 people working in the building. 450 were on the second floor, 350 on the first floor, 40 were on the mezzanine floor, and 45 were in the basement. At the time of the fire, the occupancy of the second floor had increased to between 500 and 600 people, as workers were gathered to collect their salaries. They heard that the building was on fire at 18:56 and 15 seconds. Due to the fact that there was no effective alarm system, evacuees were not aware that the building had already been burning for up to 26 minutes. They were unable to exit via Block B because the adjoining door was kept locked, and were unable to jump from the windows because they were barred. At 18:56, the electricity was turned off, and with no emergency lighting and unclear escape paths, wayfinding was severely disrupted. Occupants on the second floor attempted to evacuate the building from the main staircase, leading them to the first floor where the heat was even more intense. The FIA report mentions that tiles and plaster on the first floor stairs had cracked and broken in the heat. The FIA report also states that the concrete structure of the steps was destroyed, making the staircase untenable, and that shoes and chappals in the area indicated that there was likely a stampede as people tried to escape. On the first floor, there were 2 emergency exits to Block B. Both of these doors had expanded in the heat of the fire, causing them to lodge in their frames. They were unopenable. On the mezzanine, the unprotected timber floor structure was quickly consumed by fire. Also consumed were ladders leading up to the mezzanine, leaving the occupants of this floor trapped on a burning platform. In the basement, routes leading up to the ground floor were blocked by the improperly stocked burning material at the top of the stairs. Those trapped in the basement suffocated due to smoke inhalation. In the entirety of the structure, there was only one opening for evacuees. This was the main warehouse entrance on the northeast side of the building, and it was largely inaccessible due to the amount of burning material on the ground floor. In order to assess the impact that improved fire safety would have had, we conducted multiple crowd simulations to establish how occupants could have escaped from the building. Each simulation is tested with 885 occupants to represent the over-occupied state of the building at the time. This scenario is intended to demonstrate as closely as possible the crowd conditions of the actual fire. There is no alarm system, the exits to Block B are unavailable, the main staircase becomes inaccessible during the simulation, and routes from the basement are blocked. The main staircase quickly becomes overcrowded, slowing the escape of all evacuees. As it becomes untenable, occupants have nowhere to escape, and only 2/3 of those inside eventually make it out of the building. In this simulation, there is also no alarm system, and exits to Block B are still unavailable. In addition, one of the staircases from the basement is blocked. However, the main staircase remains accessible throughout the duration of the fire. This basic change increases the rate of evacuation throughout the fire and allows all of the occupants to escape. The final evacuee leaves approximately 38 minutes after the earliest starting point of the fire. In this simulation, there is an operational alarm system, and exits on the mezzanine, first and second floor to Block B are accessible to the evacuees. The main staircase remains available, as does the secondary staircase to the ground floor. All of these conditions are a requisite of the law to which the building was supposed to adhere. The presence of an alarm dramatically reduces the response time and increases the number of successful evacuations. All evacuees leave the building in under 7 minutes. By overlaying the smoke and crowd simulations, it is possible to see how the movement of people confluenced with the movement of the fire. Smoke caused by the intense fire on the ground floor is responsible for trapping and suffocating those in the basement. Locked exits on the mezzanine, first and second floors forced evacuees into the smoke-filled staircase as their only means of escape. Regardless of the cause of fire, such as that suggested by the Joint Investigation Team report, fires can and do occur in factories. We hold the design and management of the building responsible for the death of 259 workers at the factory. In spite of the positive SA 8000 certification that the garment factory received, we have sought to enumerate the ways in which the building failed to meet the Pakistani regulations and the social accountability international guidelines with which it was supposed to be compliant. Small changes to the fire safety measures in the building could have dramatically changed the outcome of the Ali Enterprises factory fire and dramatically reduced the loss of life.